All right, y'all. Welcome back to the Who's Right podcast. We're coming to you with uh, a game we salvaged at the end on this home and home series, and I'm counting it as one. I know some people are counting as two separate series, but we're counting as one because we didn't do a video in between the series. But before we get into it, hey, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Let us know how you're feeling. Are you feeling the way I'm looking right now? Let me know. But before we get started, hey Victor, how you doing?
I think we're all feeling like Steve Cohen right now, ready to sell the team and to have a fire sale like we did last year. Because man, these Mets look horrible, man. And even in Game Four's win, they looked, they beat them. They almost beat themselves again. Edwin Diaz isn't get. We'll get into it more, but I'm just so frustrated with how this Mets team is playing right now. But it's a long season. We just finished one quarter of it, and if we can pick things up going into the last three quarters, then things might look up. And look, we're only a game back from the wild card, so it's a long season. It's a start. This is only the start. Let's keep our heads up at Mets fan. This might be the lowest part of the season. Let's hope that it's the lowest part of our season.
Yeah, no, for sure. There's enough to be gripe about, so we're gonna just get right into it. Monday. There's not much to say about Monday. The biggest problem with Monday was really Edwin Diaz. We had the game locked. We had our pitching, our hitting did well. There wasn't really much to gripe about on Monday, other than Edwin Diaz. Right, he comes into the game, and has a 4-2 lead, right, and blows it. At the time I wasn't too concerned, and after today, I mean that's another story. We'll get into it, but I'm starting to get concerned about Edwin Diaz, and we played well on Monday. Edwin Diaz that just didn't come through. Um,
Yeah, it seems like, man. Well, first, Edwin Diaz wasn't the only problem on Monday, but a little more on Edwin Diaz about how he's been pitching. And it just seems like he's not himself. Like he's got the yips, like Keith was saying in the booth. Like he's got something going on mentally that's not letting him locate stuff. Because when you're walking the bottom of the order, that's not a good sign for you as a pitcher. Those are the guys you should feel confident against. And we saw a little bit of his confidence as he was getting out of that inning in Game Four and getting out of that jam. But it shouldn't take a run for you to get out of that headspace, right? And not only that, we still yet to see him throw his hardest stuff. I think what made him so dangerous in 2022 was he was throwing 101 miles an hour. He was throwing right by these guys, right down the middle. And now he's not even doing that. He's throwing 97 on average, not blowing it by them at all, having these long at bats to tire himself out. And that doesn't work. That doesn't work when you're a closer. You need to be able to shut these guys down uh, and have a put out pitch. I think that's something that we've seen or have not seen from our Mets pitchers throughout this whole series, throughout this whole season, even. Uh, from starters to closers, we have not had a single pitcher really be able to locate that put out pitch. And it might be on it raises some questions. Is this on the coaching staff or what? But at the end of the day, Edwin Diaz is going to be our closer. We have to have him figure it out, and let's just hope that he can figure it out because, like I said, it's a long season.
Yeah, and I wouldn't go as far as the team didn't have put out pitches because for a long time we were leading the league in ERA. So that's saying that we had put out pitches. And then we have Reed Garrett go pitching the way he's pitching. Other than today, he's pitched well, and so I wouldn't go as far as us not having a put out pitch. I just think this is now a concern for Diaz because I don't know. I was listening to the Shea Station podcast the other day or yesterday, and they were just saying it takes he's been out for a year and a half, and and maybe it's time. That's what he needs. And you alluded to it while you were talking. Maybe we didn't even need him in the game if our bats would have blown the game open in the third inning when they had the chance. You come up with the bases loaded, I believe. After JD earns that walk, and then Christopher Sanchez has an immaculate inning, because three straight batters go 1, 2, 3, strike three, 1, 2, 3, strike three, 1, 2, 3, strike three between Beatty and Bader and McNeil, and you expect, you know, you know, McNeil, if we're talking about McNeil being old McNeil, to at least put the ball in play. And to have an immaculate inning like that after you couldn't locate the strike zone, maybe we wouldn't have had Edwin Diaz in the game on Monday if our hitting was doing their job. And we're going to talk about it more in the games to come, that some people are paying the price for our hitting not doing their job. And so that is something to talk about. That we had Christopher Sanchez on the ropes, and we let him off of it.
Yeah, the only bright spot I would say from game one was Pete Alonso and JD Martinez hitting back to back, because they're looking like they're starting to produce in that 3 and 4 hole, and maybe even that 2 and 4 hole, as we've seen. And we can talk more about the lineup in games 3 and 4. And I kind of liked it, to be honest. But JD Martinez was starting to get on base a lot more. But when that happened throughout this series, those rallies were killed early. It's like we got on base, and all of a sudden, we can't keep it on. We saw in Game 4 today, or throughout the series, how the Phillies were just able to rally behind their guys. And that's how they were able to. That's how you build winning teams. That's why the Phillies are so good, is because they carry on those rallies, not just the 1 through 4 or 5 hitters, but the 6 through 9 are just producing. Even if it's Edwin Diaz walking them, they're getting on base by walking, and that's all we ask for. If Christopher Sanchez didn't even throw perfect stuff. A lot of the stuff that Brett Beatty was swinging at was outside of the strike zone. Harrison Bader too, Jeff McNeil, they were all swinging at stuff outside of the strike zone. And if you just take a walk there, then that gets you another run and saves you the game. But instead, they're swinging at everything and looking lost at the plate. And two of those guys kind of redeemed themselves a little bit, but Jeff McNeil just does not look like the Jeff McNeil of 2022. So, and we'll talk about that more in our concerns, but that spot needs to be addressed, and that was evident this whole series.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's move on to game two. Because we're just gonna keep, we're gonna sound like a broken record, and then in all these games. And so game two, the only blemish on Budo is that one inning where he couldn't locate the plate, and he pitched a good game otherwise, other than that one inning that he couldn't find the plate and it just walked everybody. So. It was tough, and then we let Nola, who's a good pitcher, but I don't know if he's the pitcher that we made him look like. He is a good pitcher. I'm not gonna deny it, but for him to go a complete game on us, it's just a little bit crazy, and I don't know. There's not much to say because nothing really happened that game. It was a complete game, shutout, and Budo had a one bad inning, and the rest is history.
And Budo ended up paying the price because he got sent down for that. And honestly, it wouldn't have even. His performance was perfectly fine. Obviously, his walk rate was up, but so has every Mets pitcher on this staff. Their walk rate has been up through the roof, and it just cost Budo here, and it cost him significantly. I just hope that he's able to work on that and then push his way back up because he's got good stuff, and he's one of those bulldog pitchers that we want to see out there. But about Nola, I understand he's a good pitcher, but we can't keep having this excuse. We did this with Max Fried. We did this with Ranger Suarez, even though we got on Suarez a little bit. We did this with with all these other pitchers that we face this year, saying that they're just a great pitcher, so that's just going to happen when you're facing good pitching. That doesn't happen when you're facing good pitching. That happens when your bats are dead and you can't get hit a lick of baseball. You know, Aaron Nola shouldn't have gone a complete game shutout. And I was hoping This is how bad the Mets. This is how damn bad the Mets are. That I was hoping that we would at least be able to knock out Nola in the ninth to get him out of pitching a complete game, because that's how bad that was the bright spot that I was hoping for. But it didn't happen. Our bats fell completely dead, and again, it was one of those games where we weren't able to carry anything, and so it paid the price. And that's game two. There's not, like you said, there's not much to talk about.
Yeah. So and game three. Hold on one second. Game three is, we had a um we had Lucchese come up. You talked about it. You talked about Budo being sent down. I think that's kind of strategic. It's not so much um as Budo being sent down and being punished for it. I think this is just more strategic because we're shifting some arms around. Um, um, we kind of talk about that conspiracy about Hauser warming up and not being available for this game and having some moving pieces. But Lucchese started this game, looked pretty good for 4 innings, and then lost it. And so it might be one of those things where he's a good out of the bullpen kind of piece. Maybe he'll be replacing Hauser here coming soon. But I expect Budo to come back after the 15 days that he has to stay down are over. But yeah, so that's the story of this game is that Lucchese came in, pitched well for 4 innings, and then got blown up. And our bats woke up a little bit, but they just weren't enough because Hauser came in, gave up some runs. Hartwig came in, gave up some runs, and so it just wasn't something that we can, talk about too much. It was almost like a throwaway game in a sense because we had Lucchese, spot starter, pitching in that game. We had Hartwig pitching in that game that just came up, and Hauser pitching in that game that was supposed to start. So, we kind of like it's almost like that throwaway game that we kind of gave up on. And so, even before it started. And so, and this was Lucchese's opportunity to shine. And I don't think he did that this game.
Yeah, not only that, Vientos came up with that. Joey Wendell DFA'd before the game. This is all news that we'll talk about in a little bit and give our thoughts on that. But Vientos came in hot. He was continuing to show off the hot bat, where he was able to get a double and drive in a run in the first inning. And after that, he stayed in the rest of the game, scored a run later, and Vientos had that still has that dog in him. It looks like he shouldn't have ever gone anywhere, and it looks like he's here to stay in that platoon role with Beatty, which I kind of like because we saw him pinch hit in the next game where he came in, didn't do so hot, but it also stinks that Brett Beatty's getting some playing time cut from him because he might not be getting as many reps at third base, and that might affect our defense as well. But it might also be a little bit of a friendly competition, and obviously it did spark our offense a little bit. But with Lucchese, obviously you made a great point. I think he will be good out the pen. He looks like he'd be good for 3 or 4 innings, one of those long relievers, and maybe getting some major league experience might be good for him up here. Hauser, he's got to go. if he can't even pitch out of the bullpen, then what do we have him here for? He's given up 3 runs and on like 5 hits. That's not even good, to say the least. It's not something that keeps you in the major league club. And at this point, just like Joey Wendell, what else do we have to see? I think it's time to cut ties with him, especially since we've got all this pitching staff coming up. But this was definitely the game. This was definitely his prove it game, and he did not prove it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we were, a bunch of Mets fans were clamoring for Lucchesi to come up, and I think we know now why, he hasn't been the choice to come up. It's been Budo, it's been Scott, it's been other guys, and even though he had a couple good games last year, he's really that emergency guy coming in, spot start kind of guy. And so, but it's okay because we need those guys too. So, and then we talked about it a little bit. Kind of the news and notes are kind of intertwined into the series, because you talked about it. Vientos came up, had a good game, sparked the offense a little bit, and Joey Wendell DFA'd, but it causes a problem, right? It causes that we don't have a backup middle infielder. And it almost came to fruition in that game where McNeil hits the ball off his knee, and literally we were thinking that Beatty was about to play second, and that's not, and we talked about it. One of the reasons why we were hoping, well, I was hoping Zach Short would have stayed on the team versus Wendell is, Joey Wendell was a guy that was redundant on this team, right? Because he's a lefty, right? Beatty's a lefty, McNeil's a lefty. Who's going to replace him off the bench? So you know what I mean. You didn't have that righty off the bench to if you wanted to sit Beatty down against a tough lefty like Ranger Suarez. Not that Short is better than Vientos. Not saying that offensively. Not saying that, but you wouldn't have to make the move that you did because of that. And Beatty pays the price because at the end of the day, Beatty's paying for the sins of McNeil, of Bader, of Marte, of all the guys not hitting. You know what I mean? Because Beatty's not the guy we're supposed to expect things from. Yeah, we do expect things from him, but I'm saying that he's not the guy that's causing these problems. He's a rookie that we're going to let play good defense. But the reason we're trying to spark the offense is because we got guys on contracts that got to play, like Marte, like McNeil, like Bader, and all these guys, got to play. Alonso, even though he's waking up a little bit, and Lindor, all these guys got to play, and they're the reason why Beatty's paying the price here. It's not because of Vientos being better, because obviously defense is part of the equation, and Vientos' defense is not good. You know what I mean? And we saw it. we saw it. We saw his defense in this game, and it wasn't good. So it's one of those things that we were left without a right-handed bat off the bench because they chose, again, they politicked it, right? It was all about politics. It's because Wendell got the guaranteed contract, the major league contract, that he got the leash first over Zach Short. And, it kind of messed this whole thing up, and Wendell was the guy we thought he was. So it's not like this is a new revelation. Wendell's been this guy, kind of like McNeil's been this guy for about a year and a half already, about 2 years almost, that he's been this guy, and McNeil's been this guy for this long too. So it's at a point where how much longer with McNeil are we gonna be dealing with this, right? But you got something to say.
Yeah, it makes no sense. This is my only gripe with David Stearns this offseason. He did great on the bullpen. I'll lead off with that. He did great with the starting lineup. That pitching staff looks lights out. And besides the walks, which I think they can work on getting down, Jeremy Hefner just needs to do his thing, get in there. I still have faith in Hef, and I think he can work on that. But the roster construction on the offensive side was was head scratching to me because you have six outfielders on the team that can only play three at a time. One of them is a DH that can barely play the outfield, and then you have Jeff McNeil, that's your second baseman, but he can play outfield as well. And you have no one that can back up the infield at this point because you've got two backup guys, or you began the season with two backup guys that you really had no intention of playing. And that's the problem. You have to have these guys that at least provide some offensive value or some defensive value. And neither of those guys really did any of that. Every one of our starting infielders, you could say, is better than Joey Wendell or Zach Short. And when you have this situation where we have now, where you have no one to back up the infield, you leave Brett Beatty to try and learn a new position in second base and shortstop. And all it does is add something on his plate when he's already struggling with his position. Well, not defensively, but he's struggling to hit. And so, what does that do to a young third baseman where he thought he had the job? You play with his emotions time and time again, and he's just got this stressor. And you know what? I will say this: it looks like he's responding well because he did play well in Game 4, and so I do like the friendly competition that it is bringing. But I don't like that it has to come at a cost of him trying to learn new positions because that's not going to bode well. And all it'll do is get him injured at the end and not produce like he's supposed to. And I would hate for them to just go and just put him into a platoon role because I think, and I might I might be one of those Brett Beatty stands, and you can call me a Brett Beatty stand, but I think he's more than a platoon role. I think he can be an everyday third baseman, like you alluded to in the last episode. I think he can be like an Alec Bohm. We saw how much Alec Bohm killed us in this series, and I think if you gave him the time, that could have been what you had. But now you're because, like you said, everyone else is struggling. You panic. You bring up a DH that tries to play third base and have no backup in the infield, leaving Brett Beatty to have this juggling act. And what is it going to do?
Yeah, and that's the problem. We're trying to spark the offense, and the only guy we have available to do that is Vientos. And that's part of the problem because he was the only guy available to spark the offense. So we're talking about messing with Beatty just because the only guy to spark the offense plays his position, and and he's paying for it because just like you pointed out, I talked about in the last in the last episode, Alec Bohm was left alone. Abrams in Washington was left alone. And look at the season he's having this year, and it's not like he was lights out. He struggled for a year and a half. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden he's coming out blazing this year with Abrams. It's not like he was doing great for the Nationals. He started doing great this year, and he was left alone. Let him develop. And again, Beatty's paying for the struggles of Bader, McNeil, Marte, and all the rest of the guys, and Alvarez being out, because we have zero production out of the, especially when Narvaez is playing, we have zero production out of the catcher position, offensively and defensively. So, but let's move on to Game 4. We can keep going if we wanted to, and you alluded to it. Beatty responded. Was starting to score in this game for us, and he responded. He got rewarded by being pinch hit for later on in the game, but he responded. Quintana pitched well. Gave up those 2 runs because our boy Reed Garrett couldn't close the door on that inning, and so those 2 runs went to Quintana. But overall, he pitched well. So really happy with his performance. And our bats kind of responded a little bit. Biggest concern out of today was Lindor. Again, his up and down season continues. And you could see the frustration in Lindor because he's letting out a lot of emotions that you don't normally see. I thought he was going to do the Conseco, Bo Jackson break the bat over his knee thing. And I forget what inning it was, but you saw him let out a lot of frustration in that moment. And so, but our batsmen responded. But the biggest thing about this game is Edwin Diaz. Edwin Diaz got a chance for redemption 3 days later, and he kind of worried me only because when that mound visit happened and everybody had to come and talk to Diaz, I was like, uh-oh, what what is going on here? This is not good when your closer needs a pep talk like 3 days after he's blown a save, because usually you're gonna come in angry and upset and close this out. And again, Jolly Olive and was talking about this. He needed a couple saves to get some confidence going, and I thought that he was going to get that today, and he got the opposite. Another blown save, and the confidence is even going dwindling even more.
Yeah, this was one of those games where I kind of realized just how good the Phillies are. Like even in defeat, they're a scary team to deal with, and for them to be in our division is not a fun thing to think about because in every aspect of the game, it seemed like we had them beat. It was like game one all over again. It could have been a game one all over again, where we start off to a hot start and then we blow the game in the end with the Edwin Diaz blown save. But at the same time, the Phillies just have that dog in them. And I hate to say it, but they look really good, just fighting back in every situation. Kosh Warber's clutch hits, and this is not me, building up the Phillies, but I know it sounds like it, but it was one of those that we had to kind of just fight them off. When a team is hot, this is the kind of win that feels good, and it was a good win for us to go into this Miami Marlins series and hope to get back to 500 by sweeping them because they haven't been playing great baseball. But it all has to start with our bats because in this game, sure that we can give credit to the Phillies relief staff after Taiwan Walker came out of that game, but Strom seemed like he was hittable, and then we had two men on, and again I think it was the fourth or fifth inning, and again we strike out three times or pop out three outs in a row to not advance any of the runners and leave them stranded on first and second. That's something that good teams don't do. And at the same time, Reed Garrett came in and gave up a couple of hits to tie the game as well. And it was just frustrating to see all of this unfold before our eyes. But then to have it capped off with Edwin Diaz blowing another save, I'm just glad it wasn't another home run, to be honest, because that was been his gripe for the whole season. And he needed another save, but it seemed like it wasn't going to be against these Phillies. Let's hope that he can get some more off of this easy part of the schedule, or a week of the schedule that's slightly easy, and that he can bounce back from it and get a couple of saves to get his confidence level back up, because he really doesn't look like himself. Right after that ninth, he went back into the clubhouse and probably went and was so frustrated in his screams because he didn't have to talk to anybody. We can tell that he's frustrated and he's not okay with what's happening right now. And at the end of the day, he's the best. I still think he's the best closer in baseball. I know that's hard to see right now because he's been this bad, but I think he still has it. He just needs to get out of his own way at times, and because he's faced the bottom of the old order and still gave that up. But you know, Harrison Bader. To switch on a lighter note, Harrison Bader came back and produced. And that he made up for his spot and got in a couple of doubles or drove in a couple of runs, a single and a double, and was able to score a run too. And so that was encouraging to see from him, especially since he's been fighting for playing time.
Well, I'll give him that. If it wasn't for Hoffman's back, I don't know if he would have had two hits, but I appreciate Hoffman's back. To have our back so we can have a win in this series. But I wouldn't go too far. I call it the Bader saved caused a stay of execution because he sparked a couple hits late, much needed, but that first hit was really benefited by Hoffman's back because that was going straight to the second baseman. And again, we appreciate Hoffman, and but
Yeah. Well, I'll just say one more thing on this game, and that was all great and all, because we'll take it. A win's a win, but at the same time, like we talked about before, Brett Beatty got taken out of the game pretty early after having a good night. He was 1 for 2, but two hard hit balls. I think it was 109 and 104 off the bat. And one just ran into the second baseman, and he got taken out as soon as the left-handed pitcher came up. And that was what, in the fifth inning or the fourth inning that happened. So you're giving yourself 5 innings for another reliever to be brought up, and um, and that happened. I mean, at the end of the day, he faced two left-handed pitchers, so it would have happened eventually. But Mark Vientos struck out like what, 2 times and popped out three, or hit the ball once and gotten out there. So this is something that I don't want to see out of Mendoza very often. If you're giving Beatty the start, give him the start, even if the left-handed reliever comes in the game. Unless you're in a high leverage situation later in the game, that's when you bring Mark Vientos in, but not this early in the game and completely derail your defense. One, but you give the other team a chance to bring in another righty to face Mark Vientos in this situation. So I just hope that this isn't trend, that this is just something that happened in this game. Luckily, it didn't come back to hurt us, but I would have loved to see Brett Beatty get more at bats in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you on that one. I think he went too quickly to Vientos to replace Beatty on this one. If you wait later in the game, you might not even need to replace him, like you said, because Vientos faced righties, and hopefully him going over 3 will stop that from happening, because at the end of the day, you know. It might be a 50-50 split for playing time right now for the foreseeable future. I don't know how long this experiment's going to last. But at the end of the day, we want the better defensive player out there, especially if both of them aren't going to produce. Vientos going over 3, and with 2 strikeouts, like you said, is not something that we want to see again. Beatty's paying for the ineptitude of the rest of the offense, right? Because why are we messing around with our young player? And this is what happens. And then we get upset as Met fans when Justin Turner leaves and plays well with somebody else, where Travis d'Arnaud leaves and plays well with somebody else. But we don't remember when we're messing around with these guys and not just letting them play and develop. It's just that I guess we're gonna jump into our concerns, because we've been talking about our concerns this whole time, and so my biggest concern, obviously I'm not a big fan of Bader, when especially because he doesn't produce consistently enough, but my biggest concern is McNeil. McNeil's not doing anything. He's not looking great. The broadcast was talking about it, that he's not looking good at all. And at this point he's just holding up the line, and there's I don't know how much longer we can go with this. And you know again, for me, bring up Acuna. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what else to say. Bring up Acuna. He's getting hot. Let's go. Let's deal with this. Send Vientos back down, and McNeil be the super utility guy off the bench. And who knows? Maybe he'll thrive in that position. Maybe the guy that we've been looking for to come off the bench and play all the positions is McNeil, not Joey Wendell, not Zach Short, not Iglesias that we're going to be talking about probably a little bit. Maybe it's McNeil, the guy that will thrive off the bench.
Yeah, and David Stearns kind of talked about that in his presser yesterday or on Tuesday when you guys were listening to this. Or on Wednesday, whatever day it was, he talked about his different options that he had in the infield and threw out a couple of names out there. But one name that he was cautious about was Luis Angel, because he said that he still needs some time, but he said that he might be up later in the year. So that's something to look out for, just because David Stearns doesn't think he's just ready yet. I don't think we're going to see him anytime soon. Maybe late July, August is when we might see Luis Angel. But other names that you mentioned were names like Jose Iglesias. That might be a guy that comes up and starts producing right away. Or he has that platoon option or as well, where he can play all three positions in the infield, or all four, as a matter of fact. But another name that you mentioned that just hit 3 home runs the other day in Syracuse was Mike Brousseau. And Mike Brousseau was a late signing this year. He came from off the free agency, or he was claimed off waivers. And I think his last team was with Kansas City, but he also plays all three positions and can play that platoon role. And he had 3 home runs in a night, and I don't think that happens on the major league level. He didn't have a great season last year. He's not a career great hitter, but he's one of those guys that you can bring up as a stop replacement for Jeff McNeil, give him some reps at second base, and then wait for Luis Angel to develop until you can bring him back up. Because just like you, he's now one of my concerns. I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, trying to give him some time, and it just seems like it's not. Time isn't helping at all. He's still popping up the ball. He's still striking out, chasing balls outside of the strike zone. Like that's the most frustrating part. He's fouling balls off that are inside the pitch that hit him, or the ball that he fouled off was 6 inches inside the strike zone, and he still swung at it and fouled it off of his leg. And he's swinging at everything. He's not taking any balls, and when he is, he might be. He had 1 walk, but after that, it just seems like he's swinging for the fences and just popping up the ball. So I would agree with that concern. But at the end of the day, there's another concern that's on my mind, and I think it's also on every Mets fan's mind, and that's just the walk rate. Something that we have to see change. Something that can't continue if we want to win ball games. We talked about how long, when we had that 12-3 stretch, we talked about how long we can maintain walking everybody and still win. And obviously, it's come back to bite us, and we're not able to win games with walking everybody. And so I just don't know how that's addressed, but it can't be every pitcher's problem because everyone is walking batters. So maybe it just needs to be a change in approach. Maybe Jerry Hefner needs to talk to his guys and tell them to be more aggressive, but that walk rate needs to go down.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and and I think it will. Severino, I think is starting to cut down his walk rate. Mania last start cut down his walk rate. So I think it's starting to happen. I think they're starting to pitch versus to just throw. Hopefully that'll continue. Unfortunately, we didn't have a who's right part of the section from last video. So let's just go on to preview the next series. We're going into Miami. Again, Miami's not, also a struggling team. Traded off a Rise already. They're already talking about selling more players off, and it's a team that we should get right on, right? Continue the momentum of the game that we won today, and just continue that momentum. So on Friday we got Scott versus Luzardo, and one of those pitchers that they're thinking of trading. On Saturday we got Severino versus Garrett, and on Sunday we have Manaya and Sanchez. For me, we got to sweep. We got to sweep. We got to get back on track, and we got to sweep the Miami Marlins because they're a team that their GM came out and said that they gave up on the season, and so this is a team that we need to sweep. So I don't know what else to say, but other that we need to sweep this team.
Yeah, absolutely. Has to be a team that we sweep. These are the games that we need to win, the series that we need to win. Not only win, but dominate. Because not only are they bad on the pitching sense, but they're bad offensively as well. And we have two out of our three aces on the team, and I'll come out and say it. Severino and Christian Scott are our aces of the team right now until Senga comes back, and they're probably fighting for that spot right now. But Manaya didn't look bad in his last start either. And so we have three pitchers that can come out and provide some stuff. Hopefully, Christian Scott can provide some length for us because our bullpen is absolutely taxed from this past Philly series. So if he can give us 7-8 strong, then that's going to be very encouraging. And it might be one of those starts where he needs to. And I know that we've talked about his innings limit, but this might be one of those games that you need to forget about the innings limit. Focus on this game. Give our bullpen a rest because we won't have another day off until next Thursday, I think. And so it's going to be a long road ahead of us. But I think with the pitching matchups that we have, this next Marlins series should be one that we come out 500 again. And like I said, we're still in that wild card race. No team in the NL has run away with the wild card spots. Obviously, you have the top two teams, but that third place wild card is up for grabs. It's really early in the season to be talking about that, but this is just things to keep our heads high as Mets fans because I know a lot of fans are ready to sell the team, but it's still early. We've seen what this team can do, and we have to prove it this series.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously it's too early to talk about wild cards and all that because you just gotta let it play out and see what happens. And you start looking at the standings after June. We're not even in June yet, so because that's when you start thinking about are you going to be a buyer, seller, stand put. That's when you're going to start thinking about those things. Right now, we're still trying to feel out the season. You alluded to it at the beginning of the podcast. Steve Cohen responding to a tweet of somebody saying, "Is it time to sell sell the parts of the team, and and become sellers?" At this point, I'm all for it because at the end of the day, that's my issue. It's not so much um, um, wanting to be this playoff contender, so to speak. It's just the quality of play is just horrible right now. And I'm not saying that we're this great team, but it just day in and day out looks horrible. Our guys are frustrated. You saw it with Lindor today. It's just the quality of play is just bad, which makes me think that's why um, Cohen responded to that tweet. It's not because we want to sell these guys off. It's because the quality of play is just horrible. You know what I mean? And it's just horrible. It's not fun to watch. And that's the problem. It's not. It's just bad. But we should come out with a sweep in this series. We got hopefully Nemo will be back from his stomach bug in the starting lineup. But you got Nemo hitting. We got Alonso looking like he's waking up out of his early season slump, and Martinez is also again into form, and so if we can get Lindor going, we might not even have to worry about the rest of the offense being struggling like it does. So take the sweep. Let's get this done. But let's get into the players of the game. I'll let you go first since you weren't here. I'll be a nice guy and let you go first. And who do you think the best standout of the series will be?
This is going to be interesting to kind of pick because I wanted to go with Brett Beatty, but I don't know how much playing time he's going to get. I don't think he's going to get much because they want to see what they got in Vientos. He might get 2 out of the 3 games, but
They got 2 lefties coming, so he's probably not gonna start for 2 of the games.
well, then Vientos is going to get the starts, and that's going to be. We'll see what he got. But I'm going to stick with my guy because he's obviously been hitting, and I got his shirt on right now. So, let's go with the polar bear. Polar Bear Pete. I don't know if y'all saw that, but I got polar bears on my back, and that's where I'm going to be riding. Polar Bear Pete.
All right. Yeah, that's not bad. I'm gonna go with the other only guy that's pretty hot. Well, not the only guy. You could either go with Nimmo or you can go with Martinez. And I'm gonna go with I think Martinez is gonna have a really good series against he's gonna feed off of that mediocre Marlins pitching. So I'm gonna go with Martinez. Um, as far as the pitching, um, I'm gonna go with Scott. Scott's gonna be the guy. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna even play around. I'm not gonna even talk about it too much. Even though Severino's probably gonna look good too this weekend. I'm gonna go with Scott. He's gonna play again in front of his home crowd because they'll probably come down to watch him. And so Scott's gonna be the guy for me from the pitching side.
He has to, right? He has to be able to give us a good outing. So that's without a doubt a good pick. Like I said, those 2 guys are battling it out for the ace spot, and so let's battle it out. Let's go with Severino. Let's see who gets this win this week with who pitches better, because this is the battle of the aces. No, not directly with the Marlins, but back-to-back days they're going to be battling it out with each other to see who's better. And maybe we get a little friendly competition in there. Who knows? But Severino's been lights out all year. He's had a couple of bad starts, but against the Marlins team that's not hitting, that doesn't produce anything, I think he can give us some length and carry this team to a series dub.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, who's going to be your Mets killer of the series?
Well, there's like I said, there's really no one to pick because no one's been hitting extremely well. But they have a couple of stars on their team or former stars. They have Jazz Chisholm, they have Tim Anderson. Obviously Arias is gone. But I'll go with. Wait, why are you giving me that look?
Did you just say Tim Anderson?
No, I said I'm not going with Tim Anderson, but what what you giving me that look for? Is he playing or something?
No, you said former. They got some stars on the teams. Tim Anderson ain't no star
Well,
anymore.
he used to be. I remember him in those Dairy Queen commercials. I thought he was really something. But anyway, they've only had one guy that's been producing, and I'm glad that you've been letting me go first on this one, and that's De La Cruz. I think Brian De La Cruz has a good series, and
And hopefully, yeah, I don't think it's going to be great, but I think he produces enough for the Marlins.
Yeah, no, I kind of handed that one to you on the platter, because that would have been the pick. If you didn't pick him, I would have picked him. But I'm gonna go with Chaz because he's their only other player that I believe can do anything, offensively on the team. So, we'll battle out with the first two batters of the game, with Chaz and Del Cruz. But yeah, so we kind of talked about news and notes. We kind of went long because we're frustrated. So we're not gonna, we're gonna kind of finish it there. Again, Mets killers only enough for this contest, but not for to actually be a Mets killer. So before we get out of here, like the video, subscribe to the channel, let us know how you're feeling about the team. Who do you think the Mets pitcher standout of the games of the series will be? And before we get out of here, Victor, any last words?
No, I mean, I just wanted to say I kind of like how Mendoza's constructed the lineup these past couple of games, and I hope that continues. Marte being back down in the lineup, and really Pete being at that 2 hole. So that's really, I think, good. I think he likes being up in that 2 hole, and I hope that it continues to lead to production because he's been able to do that. But Knicks play tomorrow. Get a chance to close it out. Our Rangers closed it out today, and so let's go New York.
All right, let's go New York. Let's go Mets.